Well, hi there. My name is Jerry Bleeker, and I'm a school teacher in Prince George, BC. I teach at College Heights Secondary School, and I have a flipped classroom project that we call eCampusLive. And this is part two of my video blogging about the experience so far. And I like to call this Where We Are Now. So I'm going to get into that. The goal of this series of video blogs is part for me to lay out what I've done and sort of see where we are and where are we going, and to speak to the philosophy of a flipped classroom and to get feedback from other people that have flipped their classrooms and hopefully shed some light on this subject. So, in part one of the things that I went into was that I see myself gravitating more or less towards project based learning. It seems to be what works really well for me. And project based learning, I've come to learn, is a lot different than inquiry based learning and problem based learning. For project based learning, you want to learn about a certain thing and then you research it and you get into it and you find out about all the aspects of it and then you report on it. Project based learning can be really amazing in a couple of respects. One of them is giving the students the chance to immerse themselves in role play. And this is where I really see gaming in education being quite immersive and stimulating for student critical thinking. Really, what we're trying to do is push students from the bottom of sort of the pyramid of learning, from just knowledge through analysis, synthesis, and pretty well all the way up Bloom's up to evaluation, and then getting to interrelation and to a much higher level of publishing. If they can put all these elements together within their learning style and then publish, it would be simply amazing. So I see my role in all of this as being not only sort of a facilitator, um, but an active participant as students move their way up that sort of hierarchy of learning within the learning style, and to give them tidbits of information. I'm quite good at showing them how to use technology to realize their projects. At the same time, I realize when there are other ways to complete their projects, and I really sort of try to analyze the student's learning style and push them or guide them into what I think is really going to fit them best. Ultimately, I think they gravitate towards what fits them best, but as I stand back and observe, I get a very good idea now with a flipped class, having the time from not pitching the lecture information to uh, having that time put back in to facilitate sort of these things that are going on and the ability to provide this advice. So in this part of sort of where are we now, I wanted to do a screencast and relate sort of where we're going and what we've done. So this is the College Heights Secondary School website, and along the side here, this says eCampus Live, and I put that in September just to help gravitate students towards what it is that we offer as digital help on the school website. And it goes here, and you'll see, the various course offerings. Uh, Several are mine, but it's quite interesting to see that this is really starting to bud. Other teachers are interested in offering digital coursework. They don't necessarily have enough time per se, but they do want to get into it. And that's a great place to start. And I see myself playing a leading role in helping students move much more solidly towards website content in their courses and really helping them realize what they want to fulfill with that. So I'll pop past our sort of Moodle entrance, and this is eCampus Live Biology 11, and it is a Moodle site. I referred to this in my first, first sort of lecture series where we talk about origins, and I've spoken to many of these elements. What's sort of heartening about this is that this has had a lot of time to distill and to become much more useful. And I've got elements on here. You can see invisible elements, things that I think that need to go, but they're just sort of made invisible at this time. What's useful, I think, about Moodle, one, of course, is always price point. It's free is always a good price, but it's extremely useful for making very simple course design. A lot of these elements on the Moodle site, I'll just go to a topic, for example. Here's one on the topic 5, Theories on the Origin of Life. When you use Moodle, you can post web elements to your course, and this is just basically a web page that covers chapter 15, evolutionary theory and evidence of change. So what I like to include are my video lectures, and I'll put my blanks of note material here so the student has something to go through, and then everything that I literally want the student to go through. The textbook is here, a digital textbook, which up until this point has been an accompaniment, is here, and some great stuff down here. I let a lot of my personality come through when I design lessons, and I think that really helps because it puts a stamp on a course and it says, this is Jerry Bleeker's course. This is what he's all about. So some of the student projects will get a little further into this based on these chapters. If you've been to my blog, this is the eCampus headquarters sort of main page, and it says a little bit about me, and yeah, I get that, but I see my blog as being more of sort of the flagship of it. And we've had a really great time, my students and I. They're very excited to see their work on here, and I always talk to them and say, are you okay with me posting your work on here? What do you think? Should it be anonymous? And a lot of them have wanted to see their work on here. So what I always do is make sure that it is anonymous. And in the last chapter, we were working on, I'll refer to the textbook chapter that we're on. This is chapter 27, the primitive worms. And it's a really ooey gooey chapter. There's no other way to put it. We studied the parasitic worms, and this is the flatworms and the roundworms. And these are some of the most horrific parasites you can get, from blood flukes, liver flukes, to trichinosis, to tapeworms. It's all kind of in there. And one of the great things that we did here is I wanted to immerse the students in role play. And when you look at the scenarios, of the project-based learning scenarios that I put up several, and then I say to the students, well, these are just the scenarios that I thought would be interesting for you to go through. If you would like to do a project that, if this sparked your imagination, or if this is pretty neat, I still have a rubric and I need you to go through these things. This is what I need to know that you've learned from this project. And the primitive worms, there's some great stuff here. If you've seen the Monsters Inside Me series on TV, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. One of the students chose to do one of these scenarios, and I'll just show you. I host my stuff on basically something called Our Campus, and I happened upon this almost by chance, by mistake. It just happened. And I was very intrigued with the idea that you could socially share rubrics online with other people. Now this one, the Simpsons Evolution Cartoon Project, is a socially shared rubric of a project, and I'll just zoom in on it here, where students analyze like a video and say how this YouTube cartoon of The Simpsons evolving misrepresents evolution. And I thought, wow, that's fabulous. What a great project. And then when I noticed that our campus was taking rubrics and making it so that you could edit them online, copy them, modify them, and share them, I was totally hooked. I thought this is perfect. And my stuff is all public, of course, because I want to share it with as many people as possible. And the only thing I would think that would be better with our campus and the rubrics would be to provide feedback from other people saying, your rubric's pretty good, here's what I'd try, here's what I think. And for the Biology 11 course in BC, which is basically an evolutionary studies course, this has been just fabulous. Most of these projects are original, as it turns out. Some are like basic bacteria reports, and I think, or generic reports, I should say. Here's one, the bacteria report. Here's one outbreak where for the first time, I asked students to play the role of Dr. Awesome. I couldn't think up a name for a doctor, so I thought, well, this guy's going to have to be awesome because he's going to have to go through so many medical scenarios. And these scenarios where you pretend to make the student into a physician, and they have to go through the symptoms and figure out what's wrong with a person and how do you take care of them. These are like CSI moments. This is where the chance for a student to play doctor, and they absolutely love it. And I know I would love it too if I were a student. So in chapter 19, that's the first time that Dr. Awesome is asked, the student is asked to play Dr. Awesome at a hospital we call Liberty University. My family's all from the United States, so I couldn't help myself. I had to call it Liberty University. And as we get further into the rubrics, as we moved into sort of the more advanced critters, if you want to put it that way, the flatworms and the sort of the parasitic roundworms, we call on Dr. Awesome to take a look at two different scenarios where there's basically parasitic worm infections. And the student work in this regard has just been fabulous. One of which, here, this is a neat little video. I don't want to play a video within a video, but one of these students, let's make it a little bit bigger, had created their own video where, this is from Draw My Life, very interesting, where they had drawn the patient going through various, let's see if I can go through this, there we go, various symptoms, and what we're looking at here is trichinosis, where the patient had consumed pork that had basically the little cysts in the meat, and the patient starting to get sick, develop a fever, chills, etc. And as the project goes on, they talk to, well, where is he? There he is. They talk to Dr. Awesome, and they even drew him, which I thought was absolutely fabulous. And Dr. Awesome goes through the symptoms, and this is a case where the students didn't just create your, I have to say it, run-of-the-mill report with words and citations and things like that. This is where they expressed themselves and really demonstrated their learning. This is the kind of learning that I think will last forever. I don't think you'll ever forget that you did a project like this. And good old Dr. Awesome there, he's hard at work determining that this poor girl had consumed trichinella infected meat, and she's got a nematode infection. And it's pretty neat when you watch this video. You can see the link above, but I'll post links to this on my course site. But Dr. Awesome does a great job of analyzing the patient, telling them what they need to do, and how to overcome this infection. So, great work. They had posted cycles of the infection, and more or less followed pretty well the entire rubric that I had posted on our campus, which was right here, scenario 1. So I've talked about it. Talking about it isn't good enough. I have to show you. And these projects, I see myself being really good at project-based learning. This seems to be my thing, my passion. Hypothesis about the pathogen, and setting up a rubric from poor to excellent, and poor is 2 out of 5. You have to tell me what the pathogen is and provide details all the way up to excellent. Excellent is seated with the premier learning outcomes of the course. You tell me everything there is to know about this critter. Infection, tell me the life cycles. Anatomical drawings. It just goes on and on. Treatment. If you were the doctor, well, what would you do? Are there vaccines to prevent them from getting infected? And if they're infected, what would you do? Right down to presentation. How well did you do? So when you look at this project here, calling Dr. Awesome, this is probably one of the most original projects that I've seen. The students understood what they needed to do, and then they could put their personality to work in the way that they did it. And this is the kind of freedom in education that I think is absolutely imperative. It's so required. If I could make one stamp on education, it would be allowing people to let the personalities through within their learning style. Really, if you're looking at multiple intelligences, I would be all in with Gardner, right? All in with Gardner and all in with Bloom. And I've seen student work has been fabulous in several regards. this one here, I'll back up one unit when we studied Kingdom Protista, which is like the little one-celled critters, little pond water critters that you find on our planet. This project, a student decided to go solo. Let's make it a little bigger. And what was amazing was the student came to me, and what she had done is she created these little recipe cards, and she was all excited about her show, and said, oh, "I'm so excited to get going on this. I really want to up my mark in this class." And I could see that spark. The student was hooked, and I said, "Go for it. Let's see what you can do." And I've posted, I posted this on the site, and this is a chance where a student, this student used Jing as a screen recorder, and she took on the role of narrator. And I always say this reminds me of Lorne Greene's New Wilderness. Talk about an old concept launched in a new way. And she told me all about phylum Euglena, which is this little pond water critter that can photosynthesize. Let's see if we can find a picture of it. There we go. Pond water critter that can photosynthesize and also consume, and it doesn't have cell walls. It's often referred to as perhaps a missing link between plants and animals because it eats and photosynthesizes, and it doesn't have a cell wall. What was amazing was to see the student go around onto all sorts of different resources, from YouTube to images to running through a slideshow and teaching me all about this little critter and just why it was so important. And Mr. Bleeker, look, it's got an eye spot right here, and check out that flagella. It whips around and it'll swim into the light. And that's when I knew that this student had kind of found their learning style. They had found their motivation to learn and to express it. And I always thought if a student had a chance to play teacher, well, the best way to learn is teach, right? So I always say that teaching looks like it's a profession where it's an art form with scientific principles, and I definitely saw it at work here. I've seen it at work with other students where this is one where I've posted before where the students were looking at ciliates. So our little friend Paramecium is front and center in these students' work, and students appear to be learning from each other. They're getting the idea that if you want to, let's move that along, if you want to play narrator, you definitely can. And playing narrator is basically like playing teacher. So let's see if I can get this YouTube video to move along a little bit. I'll reload that. And I've seen projects from...
So, hey, Mr. Bleeker.
Nope, there we go. They're pretty enthusiastic to get into these projects, as you can tell. Let's see if we can get a little further there. But their personalities come through, and it's interesting because in some respects, they appear to be sort of Microsoft Office trained. And I've said, look, the information is the information, but you are the show. Tell me what it is that you know. Tell me what it is that you've learned. Make me believe. And they've taken it to heart, and they're moving past simply things like sort of the Microsoft Offices into software or cloud applications or iPad apps or whatever it is to show what it is that they know. So I'll close a few tabs here. These girls did a great job. You can see anatomy of the paramecium. Here's the information. But they spoke to it. They didn't read this line for line, which is good because I would have really hated it if they had. And they told me all about what they thought it meant. So if you want to see some of that, check out the eCampusLive site, and you can check out each of these examples. This example would be one where the student of their own choosing decided to do a Google Doc, and they shared it with me. So I've blotted out their name here to preserve their anonymity, right? Because we've got FOIPOP considerations and all that. But they decided to do this, and this is their project. And here I am down the side providing comments. Now, students have commented back to my comments, which I thought is quite amazing, because I've had more time in a flipped classroom to go over comments like this and to say your grammar's a little out, or I thought you could have done this, or, you know, way to go, what an awesome job. And in some of their online documents, what I've asked them to do is go further. I'm kind of tired of text and pictures and things like that. Go further. Give me a link to a YouTube document, or sorry, rather a YouTube video. Give me a link to a document. Give me more information and speak to it within the body of your work. And that's challenging, because if you think about it, what could they do? Not only speak that information, but also cite it. Citations, holy smokes, there's a whole bunch of work there where I could literally go down and work with my librarian about how can we really amp up these citations. I've done my master's degree. I've done APA style. It's how I write. But when you look at how technology is moving these things along, there's a lot to cite, and to make sure that the students are not only performing but citing their work is sort of the next level of what's coming. But I prefer to make modifications on their documents in purple, and at the very end I say what their mark is, and they've responded to this very well. One thing I can say about something like Google Documents, something like this, once a student shares it with you and you comment on it, this is ideal in so many respects, because I don't have anything I have to hand back. And I've had students respond to my comments, such as this over on the side, shortly after I've made them. They're so aware of the feedback, and they appreciate when you take time to do detailed anecdotal feedback. They know you've done it, you know you've done it, and you've done a much better job of working and marking. And it goes right back to a rubric like this, where you can say, well, I see you on the scale as to being here. What blows their mind is where I say, okay, well, fix it and submit it, and I'll regrade it and give you a better mark. They don't seem to get that. They seem to think, well, this is my work, and this is about as far as I've gone, and okay, I'm done. And I always challenge them. I said, you know what, you did great work, but what makes you think you're done? Well, that's something we're working on. Some people call this failing forward. It's about writing your work. So we'll close a few things here. There's Google Documents, which I'd say is absolutely fabulous. This stems from where I showed students. I came from the Kamloops Google Apps for Summit Education get-together. And you can create quizzes in Google Forms, and they don't have to be the kind of quizzes where your responses are logged to you as a person. They can be anonymous. So we use these very formatively. In fact, I'll just open up a browser here. There we go. I'll go to my own Google Drive. If you look at my own drive, and I'll go to, let's see here, my eCampus biology information. This is my plant-like protist quiz right here, where I had made the quiz, and then I had challenged the students in class to take this, and then we analyzed the results. So we looked at view the live form. There you go. So this is what it looks like as if you were taking the test. There you go. And you can look at the responses, and there's a neat little option here once you create a Google form called Summary of Responses. So when we looked at it, we're like, well, okay, so when the students make their answers to Google Forms, they basically go into a spreadsheet, and you're just graphing the spreadsheet responses. So if you go to Responses, Summary, right there, well, here's basically the summary. It's been graphed out for you. And here's what the kids said. And right then and there in class, you can do formative assessment and say, hold on, cowboys and cowgirls. What's going on? It's interesting. Some of you responded this, but there's a good chunk of you that said this, and I'm curious as to why. And that leads to a great in-class conversation about the information, And the students decided that in some of their reports, they wanted to do these as well. And you see that right here. This project was done by 2 of the boys in the class. And what they wanted to do was to create sort of their own Google form. And this quiz is pretty interesting. What's amazing is it's color, which is premier in biology if you want to know what things are inside of a cell, for example. And this also includes video, which is amazing. In my video, I had included amoebas streaming their cytoplasm and forming pseudopods and said, okay, so what phylum does that belong to? Can you give me an example of a critter that belongs to that phylum? And it was, amazing. And then the students in their projects, I challenged them to go out and give it a spin on their own. And here you go. You can see that they've taken it for a spin and created their own Google form. They're starting to think about assessment for learning themselves, which I think is fabulous. So really, where are we at in this whole sort of learning to do or learning to apply educational technology? Well, we're just really at the gates. And it's fabulous because it's so original and so many things are happening. And I've got so many tabs open that I have to close a few. All right, let's get rid of a few here. There we go. So if I've got some notes here, and what I said for this, basically for this video cast, this video blog, was to talk about where we are now. Well, where we are now in eCampusLive is students are doing project-based learning, and their projects are very unique each chapter. We've gone from, as I say, role-playing to some students like to just do reports and they want to put the information together for themselves. Other kids have literally created cartoons. Other students have created screencasts, which is the first time, honestly, I would say I've ever seen students assume the role of teacher in a class. And I pushed them pretty hard in that regard. They thought, oh, it's like public speaking. I don't want to do that. But when I said, well, if you do a screencast, it's really between you and me, and if you'd like, I'll post it on the blog, well, then many of them were all in. And let's see, I've got one more to show you in Safari. This is interesting. I've got one student that had decided that she wanted to do an e-maze. And it's a very neat, almost sort of like slideshow. So I'll get this running. And this was, again, kind of going back to Dr. Awesome. And let's see if we can make this full screen. There we go. And this is the scenario where the person had contracted trichinosis. Let's see if I can pause it. And in e-maze, it's a little bit like, let's see if I can pop out of this. There we go. It's a little bit like, if you've ever seen, I have to think about it now. It's like PowerPoint, but you're spinning around in a circle. In e-maze, what she's done is she's kind of going from slide to slide in a very original way. And what she's doing is talking about the patient more or less from kind of it's Dr. Awesome, who's relating to the patient from a first-person scenario. And it's cartooned, and the student is very immersively gone into the work. Here's where the patient's talking about what they had eaten and how they contracted this, what turns out to be trichinosis. And this is Dr. Awesome speaking to the patient, saying what had gone on, right? And in this format, it's really neat. The student emailed me the login and said, check it out, and here's how I want to do my project. And this student does great work. This student is a very good solo artist, and I really appreciate that because so am I. It lets you work in an unfettered way and to be really original, and the only person you have to respond to is you, and I think that's fabulous. I've learned that teamwork isn't for everyone, Sometimes the best team number is divisible by 1, and that's what we're seeing here. The only thing I saw in emails, interestingly enough, the student had put in video examples here, but they weren't clickable, which kind of made me a little crazy. These are really good. This Monsters Inside Me link, I was pressing for about 3 minutes. Microscope work, I wanted to see it. So, little technical barriers to overcome. But when students work at College Heights Secondary School, I'm the technology chair at the school, and I've worked pretty relentlessly, I would say honestly relentlessly, to have the network and the Wi-Fi working really, really well. And it's taken time, but we're getting there. This is a bring your own technology, aka a bring your own device class. So it's been fabulous. And this student's done a lot of work on, who knows, it could be a PC, it could be a Mac. I don't know if this student was working on a tablet from home. But what I do know, and I'll kind of do a little plug for the cloud here, this is a web application. And literally creating a slideshow on the web, or there's many variations of this, sort of these spinning slideshows. What matters is that the student's personality and the student's outlook and the student's creativity is being expressed here, and that it's not just a giant deposit of information, because that's not what I want. I want to see your creative thinking, and it's wonderful. It's been great. It begs the question, sort of, how do you cite information like this? But when you look at it, here's my thinking on the citation of the information. When you look back on the criteria, the things that you have to do, the things that I've cited, these projects that I've created, pardon me, are extremely unique. And your response to them are kind of like a digital fingerprint. You can't go out online and find anybody who has, I'll zoom in on this, who has given information for chapter 27, infected, scenario 2. It doesn't exist, because this is a relatively new assignment. And as the students are running through the scenario and they're giving me the symptomology and they're speaking to the assignment and going through each of these criteria, they do it in a way that's so unique that they fingerprinted it with the way they went about it. If they plagiarized it, it would be really hard to do, because, well, how would you plagiarize a first-time assignment? This is the first time it's ever been given. And in the future, maybe I would tumble it. Maybe it wouldn't be trichinella. Maybe it might be a different disease. So it's not that hard to modify the assignments and keep the students engaged in a highly original fashion. So where are we now? Well, in this course, I'd say where we are now is we're pretty immersed in project-based learning. We do our 3 days of research, and we do lab work, and we dissect, and then we do project-based work. Recently, students for Phylum Annelida have been creating Play-Doh versions of earthworms, and then almost like doing a virtual dissection with it. It's amazing the different kind of project-based learning ideas that we're coming up with, and the students love it. They like educational approaches where we're coming at it from an original standpoint, or something really different. Or if they say, can I try it this way, will you let me? And I say, yeah, tell me where that's going to go. But you still have to capture these points. Show me that you've learned. And they really like that flexibility. And I had my administrator, and I've had senior administrators in my district, ask me, who do you think this course fits? And I've said, this fits the student that doesn't want to just read out of the book and answer questions. This kind of course fits the student who wants to do original work, who wants to do creative thinking, who wants to do dissections, who wants to work in the class, who wants to work from home, who wants to work with technology. I love technology, and so do the students. We're using it all the time. The kind of student that it doesn't fit, as I say, is just kind of a student who just wants to answer questions, take tests, and get points. I've given up on that long ago. I'm much more interested in the critical thinker, the student who can take general information, right? Tear it apart, put it together, evaluate it, and apply it. And in these projects, they're also publishing about it. It's fabulous, and we're going to keep going. In our next reflection, I have down here part 3. I'm going to talk a little bit more about students and the whole bring your own technology, bring your own device. How's this working? Geez, Mr. Bleeker, do you have tablets? What's going on? How are you supporting these kids? Do you have printers? How's your Wi-Fi? That's a tale for a different day. But this is part 2, reflection. Where are we now? I hope I didn't babble too much. I hope you got a sense of my personality and what I really think matters. Okay, Mr. B signing off. Have a good one.